Welcome back to Stack Hunters. Bradley Stalder, along with guest Johnny Tuma. Tuma, welcome to Stack Hunters here on the Player Profiler Now Plus Network.
Let's go.
Tonight, Johnny and I will be discussing 5 running back rooms for fantasy. Oh, no, it's going to be more than 5. Maybe we'll give you some bonus running back rooms. No. We've got lots of them. Johnny has, if you haven't checked out Johnny's thread on the X Machine, Johnny did a deep dive into all 32 NFL teams and ranked these running back rooms. This was a Herculean effort just over the course of a couple hours of just flexing the muscles. Sometimes it's very easy for us as fantasy analysts to get caught up in just a couple of our favorite players. But when you do deep dives like how Johnny does or the projections team do, when you look at like the whole landscape of the NFL, this is where you can find the edges. This is where you can see things a little bit more clearly, and not just how is this player going to do on his own team, but how should we look at him compared to other teams and then making evaluations. Johnny, tell me a little bit about like what went into your rankings of the running back rooms.
Yeah. Well, thanks for shouting it out. Yeah, I'm on X at Fantasy Picasso. And, at this point in the year, I think it's just so early, and any edge we can get in these early best ball drafts, people are still doing their dynasty drafts, right? So just trying to figure out how those rooms are going to shake out and who those potential late round targets could be, those darts that you want to throw. I think that was the most interesting thing to work through, because we know who the studs are, right? As I got near the top of that list, it gets a little more clear. Yeah, your Saquon Barkley is going to be the guy you want to target with the Eagles. But at the running back rooms at the end, like Dallas in my rankings, like there's a lot of ambiguity there. And with that breeds opportunity for us fantasy players.
Oh, absolutely. There's lots of opportunity. And Johnny and I see some of these rooms very similarly. I pride myself on projections. Like that's something that helped me get into the fantasy game. And I said, you know what, Johnny, why don't I take a look at where my projections have these running back rooms and compare them to your rankings? And sometimes it's not a one-to-one correspondence. There's NFL talent, there's film grades compared to what is actually happening in the fantasy realm, the math behind it. But Johnny, we see some of these teams very similarly, and I haven't shared this with Johnny. These are all surprises.
Yep.
But I've been able to see Johnny's rankings, and there are 3 teams that we see exactly eye to eye, the exact same rankings.
Oh, cool.
This is great. Yeah, at least there are some that we are in good shape for. One is the Detroit Lions. Your number 1 team is also my number 1 team. It's clearly the Lions. Gibbs and Montgomery. They're both, well, top 15, but Gibbs was the RB1 last year in fantasy points per game. He absolutely crushed. It's clear the projections support them. Johnny, dive a little deeper into the Detroit Lions, what you see for them.
Yeah, I mean, first off, like great 1-2 punch. Everybody knows that. You'd put up Monty and Gibbs, just like the yin to the yang that they bring. Like they are perfect complements for one another. So that alone puts them in number 1. I actually think Craig Reynolds isn't that bad, but then the more, like I put this on the thread, the more exciting guy for me is like Sione Vaki, because this guy on a per touch basis in college was like so electric, just has this make you miss, this backyard ability to him. And he's buried. He might not see a ton of work, but what's intriguing to me is, some of these other running back rooms are kind of built on like a house of sand, where if Derrick Henry goes down, who's going to replace Derrick Henry, right? But if Jahmyr Gibbs goes down, Sione Vaki could actually fill in kind of interestingly for him in the passing game, and then they could lean on Monty in the running game a little more. So when I was putting my rankings together, a lot of it went into the entire depth of the room. And there's no way, Vaki's a 4th round pick. He's going to be on that roster. So there's some comfortability there and depth that I really like to the Lions.
Dynasty D-Gens sweating. They love it. This is bringing the heat, Johnny, right off the bat. Another team that we see eye to eye on, the Cleveland Browns. You and I both have the Browns as a top 12 running back room. They've revamped it. No more Nick Chubb. No more I don't even know who the RB3s are. You know, like it doesn't matter. It's
Right.
clearly Quinshon Judkins. It's Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. It's a reshaped room for Kevin Stefanski. And as someone who grew up in the Cleveland area and has been following the Browns, I will not say I'm a Browns fan, but I will say I've been following them. Stefanski, I think, is the most underrated coach in the NFL. And if you have Quinshon Judkins, who is a Nick Chubb prototype in this backfield, Stefanski's going to use him and use him well. And there's enough talent behind Judkins. You mentioned the depth and the talent. I think it's there for Cleveland 3 deep.
Yeah, I mean, Judkins, let's just drill into him for a second because I think there's some uncertainty there. There's some advanced metrics that don't pop off the screen, right? But this guy's true freshman year is up there with Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and like that's it. So
wait,
like
that's not popping off. That's not popping off, Tuma. Come on now.
Was it? No, and that's the true freshman, right? Some of the missed tackles forced in his junior year, and the EPA per rush, and some of the spreadsheet guys will make knocks on Judkins, but he's going to be a bell cow. I love Dylan Sampson as well, and I think that like people kind of were like scratching their heads. Oh, they took 2 running backs. Well, yeah, they did, and at the end of the day, like whether that's a great football move or not, they definitely turned around from having one of the worst units, in my opinion, last year to a top 12 unit. I took some heat for putting them that high. They're unproven rookies. I think one of them has to pop off, and I think they could both be solid NFL backs.
Yeah, I think Sampson is maybe a year away from taking over the Jerome Ford role. They do like Ford in Cleveland. He's been, the number 2 guy for years and has stepped up admirably for Nick Chubb, but admirably isn't superstar level. And that is the 90th percentile outcome for Judkins is superstar level possibility. But the third team that we see eye to eye on is the Jacksonville Jaguars at 20. And we talk about like depth of talent for the Jaguars because they have former first rounder ETN. They have Bigsby who splashed a little bit last year after coming off arguably the worst running back season we've ever seen. For like take Bigsby. I had left him for dead, didn't draft him at all in 2024. And look, sure that was a mistake, but then they bring on Bashal Tutin. And back in February, pre-combine, I was in on Tutin. This was a guy I wanted pieces of. And I think this 20 is a fair ranking because we don't know where it's going to go. ETN could leave. It could be a 3-way split for part of the season. I don't think Bigsby goes away. And so there is a lot of uncertainty about this Jacksonville Jaguars team that, yes, they have a new GM in Gladstone, but we don't know what more moves he's going to make to turn this into an offense that ultimately has his identity behind it. There are still vestiges of previous regimes on this team. So I think there's a fair amount of suspicion with a 20th overall ranking for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, yeah. And I think some people pushed back on that to me and said like, oh, maybe they should be further, down the list, right. In the mid 20s. But at the end of the day, they've got solid options, right? And it's not a team that's like lacking options and depth. And so that's where that factored into my rankings is like Bigsby, to your point, for as bad as he was his rookie year, he was equally like surprising in his sophomore year. So I am in the camp that, I think Tutin's going first in all of the best ball drafts and it's kind of the guy to own. He certainly has that upside, but I also think, to your point, Tank Bigsby is not going away. And I'm one of those guys who has been in love with Travis Etienne for years and think he's a capable runner. And I think that Liam Cohen knows how to draw up schemes to get, if they kept all 3 of them, he could use them all 3 effectively. So that's why I think 20 is fair.
20 is fair. We're still seeing pretty close eye to eye for a couple others. There's 1 spot differential for 2 teams, San Francisco 49ers and Tennessee Titans. We'll talk about the 49ers. Johnny, you ranked them at 4. I have them at 3. We're not really going to haggle over, the 49ers have Christian McCaffrey. They have, other pieces. They did lose. They have Isaac Rendell, but they did lose JP Mason, in the trade. Really, Jordan James is there. Like there's there's still a little bit of depth question. They lost Eli Mitchell in free agency. There's a little bit of loss, but when you have such a dynamic player as Christian McCaffrey, it's hard to find a pathway for him to even the entire room to not be top 5.
Yeah, to your point, like not one to haggle about at all. I'm looking at like I have the Falcons at 3 just because, Bijan's coming off a scorching hot season and Algier is a former 1,000-yard rusher who's a solid backup. But like I personally really like Garendo. I think the big insight and advice I could give there is like I've heard some people saying that Jordan Mason's going to walk into the number 2 role. He's drafted in the 5th round. Garendo is drafted in the 4th. Garendo has more juice. Like when he's healthy, I think he's the guy behind Christian McCaffrey. And I think Christian McCaffrey's as good as any starting running back in the NFL. So it's a solid squad for sure. I mean, that's why I have them top 5.
Yeah, but Tennessee is on the other end of the spectrum. We both see them as, a bottom quarter of the league running back room. You've got Tony Pollard, who's had his ups and downs over the last couple of years. He's lost a bit of that efficiency when he was from Dallas. Now maybe this is more of an indictment, not of necessarily the running back room, but the overall offense of Tennessee. Are we confident that Cam Ward is going to be the elevating factor for the Tennessee Titans? I'm not confident in year 1. This might be a Bryce Young situation where it's going to take a little bit of time for the Tennessee Titans to find their identity behind Cam Ward and this offense to take future steps. So for them to be ranked this low, I have them at 24. You have them at 25. Again, not hangling over it, but it's clearly an indication that this team is not close to competing seriously.
Yeah. Tyjae Spears is a guy I was really excited about as a rookie. I think he's just kind of had an underwhelming start to his career. He's, struggled to stay healthy last year. And again, the big thing when I put these rankings together is also it is taking a fair look past the first 2 running backs on the depth chart. Like Spears and Pollard, fine, good duo. But after them, like Khalil Mullings, Julius Chestnut, like woof, you know what I mean? And if those guys, Pollard and Spears, they're not big guys. Like they could get dinged up. I very well see one of them missing some games this year. And then you're having to lean on those guys I just mentioned earlier. And so the less you're dependent on, guys that other teams wouldn't start if they didn't have to, like the better the more well-rounded and deep you are. So I think depth was a big piece of it too, for me when I put them that low.
Yeah. Once you get past Tyjae Spears, yikes. You mentioned the Falcons are top 3. I have them at 5. So we're not off either. Bijan Robinson clearly there, but again, this is the strength of the running back room. Tyler Algier has a 1,000-yard season under his belt. Dude's a baller. If he was on almost any other team, like he'd be a starter, but he's stuck behind Bijan. And look, again, you have him at 3. I'm at 5. We're very bullish on this offense, this running back room. Maybe there are a couple questions still hanging out for Michael Penix, whether he's going to be able to, take the next step. We saw some good things, some flashes near the end of the season. But what will an entire offseason knowing that he's the guy do for Penix in this offense, Johnny?
I mean, I just think, like the guy has incredible aura. Like it's kind of a joke out there, but it's true. Like that matters at the football, like at the quarterback position. And when he came in at the end of the year, like it was not a detriment to Bijan whatsoever. That was some of the most productive stretch of football that he played. And so I think I'm bullish on this offense. I think Darnell Mooney could continue to replicate what he did last year with a guy like Penix. Like when you look at what Penix did for Jalen Polk, Rome Odunze, and Jalen McMullen, like, McMillan had the best year out of those 3 guys his rookie year, really. And Polk looked terrible. And Odunze, I love Odunze, but it was sad. And so Penix really showed an ability to elevate his receivers. Obviously, I think there was like 18 targets to London in week 18. And so this offense is going to be fun. And I'm all in. I think, they've got that Zach Robinson kind of Sean McVay coaching tree scheme going on there. So it's going to be a fun offense. But I put them at number 3 because I also think Bijan has as good of a chance as anybody to finish as our RB1 overall this year.
Ooh, love it. Love the Bijan call. RB1 overall. You heard it first here Thursday, May 29th. Johnny Tuma joining us here on Stack Hunters, bringing the heat for the Atlanta Falcons. We've got, how many teams is this? This is a tremendous amount of teams that we're 3 spots off. So again, not far, but we can start to haggle. We can start to debate a bit. We're starting to edge into the, all right, we're seeing things a little bit differently. There are, 6 teams that we see 3 spots apart. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have, it's a top 10 projected running back room. Johnny, you have them at 13. My big question for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers room is, yes, we saw Bucky Irving take the next step. We saw him have the stranglehold in the offense. But a question that came up yesterday on Man versus Machine with Wyatt was, what happens if Bucky Irving goes down? Is Rachaad White clearly going to be the handcuff you want, or is it going to be a split between White and Sean Tucker? Tucker flashed a little bit last year. So how are you reading this running back room in Tampa?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you said is the reason that I couldn't put him a little higher. Like, when I'm looking at constructing an ideal running back room, you want someone who can handle volume, who has the size to handle volume at that RB1, especially when you're built like this, where like everybody's drafting Bucky in the top 25, like he's going to be the guy and see 15 to 20 touches a game. To see 15, 20 touches a game and hold up for 17 games, you got to have some meat on your bones. And I will give Irving like a lot of credit. He was as tough as anybody. Like, he was playing through, so he's dinged up in his hips a couple of games, still returning kicks. It was like, while he was already had broken out, and it was like, why are they doing this? Why are they letting this guy return kicks when he's clearly dinged up and he wants to play through it? But like, is that the best way to utilize him right now? But anyways, they seem like they want to ride him till the wheels fall off, and I think they will, and the wheels might fall off at a certain point, and then you're leaning on Rachaad White and Sean Tucker. I like Sean Tucker a little more, but it starts to get a little testy after you take such a step down from an electric player like Irving.
Well, we're going to take a short break, but before we do, a word from the Podfather about the Flex 4 tournament.
Let's face it, most people that play fantasy, they don't play DFS, they don't play big best ball tournaments. Why? Because it's too complicated and they feel like they can't win. And that's why we developed the Fast Draft Flex 4 game. You just draft any 6 guys, the top 4 enter your lineup every week. So if you love Garrett Wilson, you think he's going to outscore Tyreek Hill, or you love Breece Hall, and you think he's going to outscore Devon Achane because you're a big Jets fan, if you're right, you will make money. You don't need to be running big data models. You don't need to be soaked in strategy and understand the schedule forwards and backwards. That's the beauty of Flex 4. Sure, those with great strategy win more money, but those that have strong takes on players can also go out and monetize those positions. And the beauty is it's just $5 a draft, just $5. You can draft 150 times and the winner gets 10 grand. So use your host promo code to get a $50 deposit match. So when you deposit, use that promo code and then you get $50 on me, because Flex 4 is a whole new way to play best ball.
All right, welcome back to Stack Hunters. Johnny Tuma in the house. Bradley Stalder talking running back rooms. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, an interesting one, but the Indianapolis Colts also one that is only 3 spots difference, Johnny, and we have them flip-flopped. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Indianapolis Colts. I have them at 13. You have them at 10. So I'm a little bit lower. And I think that it's, yes, we have clarity about DJ Giddens being the RB2. I think that's he's the rookie. And Jonathan Taylor, clearly a stud. My concern was that there's not a Sean Tucker on this team. There's not like a third running back that could eat a little bit more. And so when the projections come in, there's just, it lacks a little bit. It's lacking a little bit. And yes, these projections are in like half PPR. So there is like weight toward touchdowns and goal line. And are the Indianapolis Colts going to be as dynamic overall as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I would give me the Buccaneers offense as an ecosystem over the Colts. So I think that's why it's a little bit lower for me.
I can't argue any of that. Like we talked before the show, you know, your projections are a little bit more focused on like fantasy output. Mine are a little bit more just like how the room's constructed and overall talent. Again, if I had an RB1 and I were going to pick between Bucky and JT, I'd probably still lean Jonathan Taylor just because of the way he's built and that he can be that guy who plays at 85% snap share. Now, he's struggled to stay healthy too, so it's kind of ironic. We want these big guys who we think can hold up, and then he can't hold up, so it's all for naught if that's not the case. But I am higher on DJ Giddens than consensus. I thought it was ridiculous he fell to the 5th round, and I think it's just kind of perfect where if Taylor was to go down, Giddens is that type of guy who could get into rhythm and start seeing 80% snap share. I'm not going to argue with you. I wanted to give you a little jab about like, what about Khalil Herbert? What about Tyler Goodson? Right? Like neither of those guys are going to be a lot of fun to talk about if I did that. So I won't do that.
Yeah, we'll spare it for when things get wild. There for those at home, there is one team that Johnny and I see 20 spots different. So we'll have some fun debating that. The Houston Texans are a middling team for us. Johnny has them at 18. I have them at 15. They feel just mid. Like Joe Mixon is past the age apex.
Right.
And then who is it? Like really who is behind Joe Mixon in Houston? It's Dameon Pierce. It's the rookie. Like there's concerns that the Houston Texans won't have a good answer if Joe Mixon is out. So I don't mind Mixon overall. I was very high on him for fantasy last year, and it paid off for most of the season. But I don't know if they're barely a top half running back room in the projections.
Yeah, so I got him a bit higher than you, right? And I think that's just because, I do like Mixon. As long as he's out there, I think he's a – oh, no, wait. I have him at 18.
3 spots lower. You have him at 8.
Okay, so I'm lower than you. Yeah. I mean, I just think there's a lot – it's not when I went through this exercise, I realized like a lot of teams have, when you get to this level, have a guy, right? So Joe right. Mixon's a guy. But then Dameon Pierce, 176 yards in week 18 last year. Like, I'm not saying, I don't know if the role for him really, I think it's actually better maybe as a trade target. I kind of like the idea of signing Dobbins, trading Pierce, and then using Dobbins is kind of that like 1A, 1B to mix in with Woody Marks factoring in on passing down. So there's a bit in flux there because that was a legit rumor. It sounds like that the Mixons and are that the Texans and Dobbins have been talking. So overall, though, to your point, it starts to be a little. You're like, man, I'm not.
It's no man's land. You're stuck in no man's land with these running back rooms because, as you mentioned, like there's still pieces to fall. Like we haven't gotten Chubb signed yet. We haven't seen Dobbins signed yet. So there's a few of these veterans still hanging out that could put wrinkles into the running back rooms. But reportedly, the Dallas Cowboys are all set in their running back room, and it is disaster zone. Look, you have them at 32. I have them at 29. It's bad. Okay. It's bad, Johnny. We both see it pretty low. Not a lot of excitement for Dallas. There's a healthy skepticism for Javonte Williams or Miles Sanders or Jaden Blue or whoever you think is going to be the Dallas Cowboys running back. But reportedly, they're satisfied with their running back room. And I just want to take a moment to, like, I don't know if you've thought of this or observed this, Johnny, but something I've noticed over the last, 15 months for the Dallas Cowboys is I think they're trying to moneyball the NFL. They're
big braining it for sure. They're definitely overthinking some things.
They are signing or re-signing former first-round picks, former second-round picks, like failed players, or they went out of their way to go get Trey Lance. They went out of their way to go get George Pickens. Like they're willing to try, quote-unquote, try again on the leftovers of other teams. And if they miss, they miss. But if they hit, they're viewing this as like, we can hit big. So Javonte Williams, former second round pick, Miles Sanders, former second round pick, George Pickens, a second round pick. Like, these are players that they brought in who have pedigree from their rookie draft eons ago that have like, they've either not panned out or they're past their prime or whatever the case. There were a bunch of players that they did on the defensive side as well this offseason. So I think the Dallas Cowboys are just trying to moneyball it and try to like garner some value. I don't think it's Jerry Jones calling the shots anymore. It's definitely someone else in the GM room who's trying to, like, as I said, optimize for production, but they're missing the opportunity to win, and they don't know ball.
It's bad. It's a glaring gap. This team. I would be curious to hear who you have behind them, just because, like, I'm a Broncos fan, so I'm kind of like, I've seen Javonte Williams. I've seen enough for 10 lifetimes. And, you know, I'll throw this out there. Miles Sanders, 116 total yards, 2 touchdowns in week 18, the 2024 season. So I actually think this is more of like a crapshoot than anything else. Like,
Sure.
I think to your point, there is maybe a dual-pronged approach they deployed with the running back room specifically. It's like, let's get a couple vets like Sanders and Javonte Williams, both former second-round picks. Then let's get some cheap darts, because this is a deep running back class, and guys that are going in the 5th round would be third-rounders in other years. And so I like Jaden Blue, and I like Phil Maffa. I think that could be an actually really fun combo. And Phil Maffa is one of these guys where I've been talking about him before he got drafted. I don't think people thought he was going to get drafted. We had a video that popped up. It had like 100 views before he got drafted, popped off for 20K after the fact, right? So just kind of funny, because it's like, okay, the breadcrumbs are starting to be there that, like, this guy is in a wide open room. He brings size and some juice that, you know, Jaden Blues can be fun in the passing game, but doesn't have that type of size that you'd look for from like an early down back. And I don't think there's much standing in the way of Phil Maffa. I'll close it out by saying, somebody said to me the other day that Chris Rodriguez was the starting running back for the Commanders. And like, I had a giggle for a little bit. And then I was like, you know what? That guy's like, he's not that bad. And then I'm like, you know what? I probably prefer Chris Rodriguez to Javonte Williams. And I'm like, it's that bad for the Dallas Cowboys. So that's where we're at.
Oh, nice. Love me some C-Rod. Some C-Rod, former SEC running back, Chris Rodriguez out of Kentucky. You love to see it. We'll keep her moving. A little bit of disrespect, your Denver Broncos. I have them at 30. You have them at 27, though. Very, very low. Yeah. So, yeah, it's no bueno for like, could RJ Harvey pop off? Yeah, but who's behind him? It's Audric Estime, who I personally love. My heart is with Audric Estime. Like, yes. Audric Estime is my guy. Like, hashtag my guy. Go Fighting Irish. But really, like, Blake Watson, my guy. But
that
like,
is my guy. I didn't even put him on the freaking list because I know it's not a thing. I wish it was a thing.
I know, but like, these are players that have my heart, but not in the spreadsheets. You know, and so ultimately, yeah, Denver at 30, you have them at 27, so not far off. They're just look. Harvey got the draft capital that we wanted to see from a Denver Broncos running back, but he's 24 already. He like maybe he'll have a year or two, but is this offense did well, but can it take another step? I don't know.
Well, this is my team. So, like, I don't want to hog the mic, but I really want to unpack this one specifically because, like, I'm a Denver Broncos fan. I have a lot of followers who are Broncos fans. And so, like, that one I got grilled the most on. You know, people thought we just immediately upgraded to, like, a top 15 unit after drafting a second-round running back. So, just first off, like, I like RJ Harvey as a player, but it was a reach. Like, he was projected to go around the 115, 120 range in all the pre-draft mock data, goes in the end of the second round, about like 40, 50 picks higher than was projected. One of the highest actual reaches when you look at that data in the past 8 years at running back. The company's not that great in terms of people that it was like Alexander Madison and like maybe not Ty Chandler, but there's some reaches there. And there's some data to support that, like, reaches are in fact reaches. Like, when people go out and pick someone who's much higher than what the pre-draft ADP is saying, that those typically don't end up bringing the return in terms of like wins above replacement for that reach. And so I say all that because that's our starter for sure. I think it'd be a good scenario to have him be like the starting running back, and then Audric Estime playing like a short yardage goal line role, different than he did last year because he was inactive a lot of games. And then I think Tyler Beatty's going to be a guy that'll give fantasy managers some headaches. I think this guy like started to have a moment with the team last year, injured his neck, went on IR, missed the rest of the year, but I think he's going to be on the roster in 2025. And the guy I think who I would avoid in all formats, this is just my opinion, is Jaleel McLaughlin, because he's tremendously undersized, heart of gold, all-time NCAA leading rusher, like a guy you root for, first guy in, last guy out type of mentality. I know Sean Payton respects and loves that. This is a guy who undrafted. They can cut ties with him real easily and was just miserably inefficient last year. Like 4.3 yards per carry, something like that. Not terrible, but what you want from a small guy like that who's not running between the tackles is to be effective in the passing work. Is 54th out of 57 qualifying running backs in yards per route run. Just really miserable when they were targeting him in the passing game. I think with RJ Harvey there, I don't see him adding any value to the backfield. If they do keep him on the roster, it's still not like he's fantasy relevant to me. So I see him getting drafted, and I'm just like, I don't know about that. So anyways.
RJ Harvey is going at RB 17 in Underdog Fantasy.
I'll have some shares. Don't get me wrong. I'm a Broncos fan.
That's too rich.
It's like right around Omarion Hampton, right?
Yeah.
And that's crazy, right? So I think people are overthinking that one a little bit too. Like, oh, it's the Sean Payton system. Like, Sean Payton has shown the willingness and like wanting to have a division of labor, and he's hinted that in the past. Like, I want to use multiple backs.
Yeah,
I don't think they drafted Harvey to be a true bell cow.
No, if they want an Alvin Kamara type, I'm just not sure that RJ Harvey is anywhere close to Alvin Kamara's talent.
Yeah.
Give me like the running backs going after Harvey. Give me Chuba Hubbard. Give me Kenneth Walker. Give me Alvin Kamara in like vacuums. Like, give me those three players over RJ Harvey in 2025. All right. I'll tell you, my worst ranked team was both the lowest in total points and lowest in max running back points. The differential, Johnny, you're not too far off on this one either. Washington Commanders is my worst running back room. They didn't do much in the way of addressing it this offseason. And partly because they don't need much. That Brian Robinson is a between the tackles guy. Austin Eckler is the safety valve at running back. But the opportunities get sapped up by Jaden Daniels at the goal line and just design rushes. So the rushing volume is low for the running back room. The ceiling for Brian Robinson is massively limited. And Eckler is on the wrong side of the age apex, who has shown signs of slowing down significantly. It's my worst team.
Yeah, I mean, I get from a fantasy perspective, when you factor in Jaden Daniels stealing rushing work, I could 100% see them being 32nd in terms of fantasy points output from the running back room. One name you didn't mention, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
I mean, yeah, a day 3 running back, maybe.
Dude, the thing is, this guy played like one game in 2024 and had eligibility issues. Like, this guy screamed undrafted free agent, and for him to get any draft capital at all, like it says that they saw something there. And the other thing I'll say is, like, there are certain analysts who I respect more than others, and Lance Zierlein, NFL.com, his prospect grades is one of them. He had Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is like one of his top 7 or 8 running backs. For reference, it was like a 6.2, 6.25, something like that prospect rating. And he had RJ Harvey at like a 5.97, right? And then so those are in a vacuum. Like, it's a very small data point, but I think he's saying like this guy has juice. And the tape is fun to watch. He's got really good testing in terms of explosiveness. And I think it's one of these things we're starting to already see this drumbeat from camp of like, hey, when they're doing the drills without any pads on, one guy looks way more springy than the other guys, right?
Yeah.
Like Brian Robinson is fine, but he is a plotter. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt brings something that is not on that offense, in my opinion. And then again, you can't forget about Chris Rodriguez, the real starter, apparently.
Love it. We're getting we're moving down the spectrum of a little bit more spicy. Minnesota Vikings. Johnny, you have at 22. I have at 18. I'm just a little bit more of a believer in Jordan Mason being the RB2 in Minnesota. Yeah. But, Aaron Jones, we see his ceiling is still top 10 running back, but the issue for him is age apex and soft tissue issues. Those are the major concerns. I'm also an overall believer in the Kevin O'Connell offense. Like JJ McCarthy is going to pop off this year. He and Caleb Williams are my top 2 targets in terms of like later quarterbacks that I'm targeting. Yeah. They're players that I want. I want Minnesota, and I do want this offense, but the Jordan Mason value is starting to disappear. Like his ADP is rising enough that I'm starting to be like, maybe I do want a little bit more Aaron Jones.
Well, I have him a little lower than you, I think, because I think Jones is a little over that hill, and I like Jones. I have him in a bunch of leagues, and I didn't let him go because you're not going to get the return in terms of like, if you're competing, he can be an RB2 for you. Right. And that's good enough. But like, he really struggled in short yardage situations last year. Again, as a guy who had him in my lineup a lot, the amount of times I had to look over at him with the massage gun, running it up and down his arms and on the bike, and he'd come in and out of the game. And he just, that's the thing, is they don't have like this big shiny RB1 for me anymore. Like, I think it is more of a 1A, 1B thing, and they're both good players, but I don't think that they're great or elite players.
Yeah. I hear you there. We're going to keep it moving. Kansas City Chiefs come in at 5 differential. John, you have them at 31. I have them at 26. But again, this is maybe like, yes, it's 5. It feels like we're closer in viewing the Chiefs than we are like with Minnesota or even the Commanders. Like the Chiefs are in a pickle because I don't know if Isaiah Pacheco's any good still. Like he came back from his injury last year and he was bad. He was bad, and so bad that Kareem Hunt looked good. And the Chiefs re-signed Hunt, which is not what you want to see if you're a Pacheco guy. And then they, signed Eli Mitchell, who actually has legit juice. Like this dude is like Pablo Sanchez, if he had full juice at the pitcher's mound. And then you have Brashad Smith.
Backyard baseball reference there. I love that.
Oh, for those who don't know, backyard baseball, if you were growing up watching and playing backyard baseball, there is now an app on the iPhone and the iPad that you can play, Backyard Baseball 97. It is a 1-to-1 replica, so you can just play it. Oh yeah, I that's why I've not been sleeping. Don't tell my wife. It's not because I'm sick. I'm just staying up late. But the Kansas City Chiefs, I have them at 26. I don't see a pathway for them to be like a top half even running back room. It's bad.
Dude, I mean, it's just kind of funny. Like, a guy can break his leg and then come back and just seem totally sapped, right? Like happened to Kyle Pitts with his injury too, where you just like watch these guys and you're like, that's not the same player. And right. Modern medicine's a great thing. We're seeing that less and less, but it's not completely removed from the game.
Right.
And so I'd love to say like Pacheco could come back and seize the role, but like I always was a bit skeptic in the first place. I'm like, all right, this guy's kind of an undersized, like, down, just get the ball and run downhill, which is good. There's a role in that, but he's not got a bunch of make you miss to him. He's a 7th rounder, right? Which is when you go to longevity, like 7th rounders don't carve out long-term roles in the NFL. Nope. So there's just, one of those things where it's like, I don't feel like they have a guy at all in terms of, something that they can really feel good about for the next few years. And then I'll close it out. You didn't bring him up. Rashard Smith, right? Like that's where I start to see a glimmer of hope is like, hey, fresh, shiny 7th round rookie who runs a 4.3 and is a former wide receiver. Like would love to see him playing next to Patrick Mahomes, catching some swing passes in space.
This is Damian Williams 2.0,
It's unlikely, right? But they have shown a propensity to give 7th rounders some run with Isaiah Pacheco. So don't count it out. And I think that's probably the
Carson Steele
scenario. Yeah. Like Rashard Smith, if he shows up and reads the playbook and goes to practice and like is hanging on to the ball and during drills, if he does the right things, why not? If Carson Steele can, why can't he?
All right, enough Carson Steele talk. This is ridiculous. The Philadelphia.
It's sad when you get to this part of the running back rooms.
The Philadelphia Eagles are your number 2 running back team. I have them at 9, and I think the big ding for them is the elephant in the room.
The tush push.
Well, not the tush push, because it is still alive. It is still alive. The tush will be pushed, but the concern I have is Will Shipley is your RB2. Kenneth Gainwell is gone. AJ Dillon is dust. So you're really you've got one guy. Let's say, look, AJ Dillon, great follow on TikTok, not a great ball carrier of the football in the NFL. So look, Philadelphia Eagles at 9, I think maybe it's too harsh. I don't care. That's where I'm going to put him. So yeah, fire it up, Johnny. Defend your number 2.
No, I mean, he's the best running back in football right now, right? So at a certain point, like I want to give that the due credit, right? Of like, you've got a guy that the way they use him, I think is perfect. Yeah. And you know what? I'll be the guy to say like, I like Will Shipley. Like I loved him at Clemson. I liked him coming out. I hated the landing spot.
Sure.
But then when he was filling in for him in week 18, he busted out a long run, right? Like, I think to your point, it gets real dicey if Barkley goes down. And again, I definitely tried to have a lens on running back room depth overall. Right. But when you've got a talent like Barkley, you just have to automatically slot him in at least the top 5. And I think there was probably a little bit of bias too in terms of like just knowing how well they run the football as a team.
Sure.
I almost like they would make anybody look good, right? And that's my thought is like, even if Barkley goes down, Will Shipley's in a good position to succeed, right? With a dual threat running or passer like Jalen Hurts in that offensive line. So I think they're going to be a top end rushing team. Obviously Saquon stays healthy, but yeah, I think I agree. I get with what you're saying. And that's kind of why I dinged. I probably was a little unfair to the Ravens in my rankings because I did the same thing. I pushed them down because I'm like, well, if Henry goes down, this room gets real dicey real quickly, right? But it's kind of the same scenario. With Barkley.
You're going to hate my Baltimore Ravens ranking.
Okay. Oh, well, I know you love Justice Hill, so you're going to be like number 2.
Well, it's time, Johnny. I got to rip off the Band-Aid. The Green Bay Packers are my 21 at running back room. You have them at 14. Our differential is 7. I'm going to keep it short. Josh Jacobs is good. We don't know what we have in Marshawn Lloyd.
We will never know.
we may. The world will never know. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? 1, 2. Marshawn Lloyd. We don't know. Look, we may never know. But looking at what's behind Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, right? That's the thing is I dinged Barkley for being like the guy and no one else behind him. I'm going to ding the Packers even more for having Jacobs and then no one else behind him. So at 21, that's how I'm putting the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I mean, you said Josh Jacobs good. I think he's great. So I think maybe there's a little bit of discrepancy there, right? And yeah, Marshawn Lloyd, for those who don't know, is working with the rehab group in OTAs already. Like he's right at home, which is just like ridiculous to me. Cause like that was part of before I put the rankings together. I'm like, well, if he's their RB2 and he's got juice, like that's a decent backup, right?
Sure.
So I think we have to make contingency plans already on that. One of the things I will say is I got quite a bit of guff on Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson, calling them. I kind of broke down my depth charts funny, like,
Sure.
my shining star, and then like the backup everybody hates or whatever. I just called them guys. I said guys. Chris
They are
Brooks.
just guys.
And they're like, he's like, guys. This guy rushed for 4.9 yards a carry. The other guy rushed for 5.1. And I'm like, all right, like they're fine. They're and that's the thing. They're not terrible players. And the crazy part was they were getting used last year when Jacobs was healthy. And so I like the overall rushing attack. LaFleur seems to be comfortable mixing in those multiple backs, but having one real kind of anchor back. It's a solid running back room. I have it right at, midway in the league. I think that's fair.
The one last thing I'll add for the Packers is their game plan changed last year. They were planning to be more a pass attack, but then in week 1, Jordan Love suffers a pretty significant calf injury where he leaves the game early. He misses a couple more games and he's still not himself. There were games where he left early and things were just not right. And the Packers recognize that these soft tissue issues can continue to linger. So they shifted their offense from, well, we want to get Jaden Reed involved. We want to get Christian Watson involved. We want to get Romeo Dobbs involved. We want to get Tucker Kraft involved. It was like one guy a week. You never knew who was going to be, but it was going to be somebody. But we know who the running back, it was going to be leaned on so heavily, that running back room. And I think there's a bit of a regression in terms of going back to their original game. They're going to be a little bit more pass heavy because they were so run heavy in the second half of the season, especially post bye. And they're also the slowest pace of play near the end. When you're running the ball so much, it's going to slow everything down. So I think that the Packers do move a little bit faster, and that moves them a little bit more away from the running back volume that you saw last year.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the wide receivers to do it, right? And the offensive kind of minded head coach. Great points. And again, I think I could see why your projections would be a little lower for them overall, because I do think this, in an ideal world, is one of the more pass-heavy offenses.
The Chicago Bears are also 7 spots. Johnny, you hate the Bears running back room. I don't hate them. I think that DeAndre Swift is undervalued. The actions speak louder than words, Johnny, and the Bears, if they wanted to, they would. This is the classic, like the girlfriend complaining about the boyfriend not proposing. Like if they wanted to, they would, sort of thing. And the Bears had all of the opportunities this offseason to sign a free agent, to draft somebody. And you know what they said? We're going to keep DeAndre Swift on this team, where he's going to be our guy. So yes, I know that the Roshan stands still are like given false hope again, but look, DeAndre Swift is a proven producer at the NFL level in various, it doesn't matter which, if he's on Philly, if he's on Detroit, if he's on Chicago. He handled over 60% of the rushes for Chicago last year. And this is a player that there were only 5 other running backs who handled more than 60% of the rushes. So in a Ben Johnson offense, give me a DeAndre Swift look, they're 23 for me. It's not like I'm like, but like they're not 30, Johnny.
Okay. So there's a few things here that are worth unpacking, I think. To secure your point, it starts to get a little cagey here as the rankings have more and more discrepancy.
Yes.
So, I am in the camp, I believe they will add a running back. I think it'll either be someone like a J.K. Dobbins, trading for a Travis Etienne. And the reason I say that is like Swift, I don't think it was entirely his fault, but 3.8 yards per carry last year is just not, you don't have a lot of historical precedent to lean on from what he did in Chicago last year to say he should be the guy next year. And then again, like Ben Johnson knows DeAndre Swift, and apparently this is actually an interesting little story here, a little more intimately than I even knew. I just learned this today. I don't have like all the details, so I got to go back and rewatch this, but I'll start with the story so I don't bury the lead, but then I want to finish with some supporting evidence. He was on, they played together, right? Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator for the Lions.
Sure.
Swift was on the Lions as well. That year, Jamal Williams had like 260 carries and DeAndre Swift had less than 100, right? He was battling some injuries, but he was active for 14 games and had less than 100 carries with Ben Johnson calling the plays. The other issue I have is apparently on this Hard Knocks, Ben Johnson is saying to DeAndre Swift something like, you could do this, this, and this, and you'd be one of the best running backs in the league, but you just don't. And apparently Swift kind of looked at him with indifference. And so I love hearing nuggets like that from people who watched it like 4 years ago. Cause I don't think I saw or remember that. If I did.
Oh, I saw that. I remember because it stuck out to me as like, man, this guy does not have the dog mentality. Like, he does not have that dog in him. He has more like, I don't know, the cat. He has the cat in him,
But so if you remember that, doesn't that give you a little pause? Like, man, I don't think Ben Johnson's as crazy about this guy as, there's something's going to happen there it's just my perspective. And if it doesn't, it's still kind of bleh. It's like Swift, Roshan, who's bleh, and then Monangai, who literally there's a clip of their running back coach Eric Bieniemy saying he moves like an old ass man in drills. So like this running back room is not inspiring a lot of hope. Like when you're calling your rookie an old ass, moving like an old ass man, I was like, damn, he's already like toast. Like
he's so done. I love that you brought to the viewers and listeners' attention that Eric Bieniemy is the running back coach for the Chicago Bears. Like that is a pro's pro get for the Chicago Bears. So good call out there, Johnny. Good for the people at home. Knowing Eric Bieniemy is going to be the guy. Maybe he can install the dog mentality into DeAndre Swift. That would be great. We're a little different on the Carolina Panthers. Looking at your ranking, I thought this was an aggressive ranking. I didn't hate it because you have the Carolina Panthers at 8. I have them at 16. So I'm middle of the pack. I don't hate the aggressiveness. I think this is more of like, if I'm arguing this for you, that you have them at 8, I'm thinking about the Panthers as an ascending offense. And this ecosystem is like the one where Chuba Hubbard can take one more step and be, like a RB10, RB12, like that's fine. Like heck, RB8 if you want. And then you sprinkle in some Rico Dowdle, who does have some juice. Like I don't hate the 8 ranking. I just, these are median projections, and the Carolina Panthers come across as a median team, and 16 is what I think is fair.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with you on fantasy production there, but I know that that Rico Dowdle has juice.
Yeah, he
like
does.
A solid backup. Like he's one of the better backups in the league. And then Chuba Hubbard is one of the most like underappreciated, underrated players.
Yes.
Go back and look at his production and just look at them with the eyes that every single yard on that stat sheet, he earned it. Like some guys are in good offenses and, have some good scheme and stuff. Like watch the tape. This guy earned every single dang yard, and he's a solid player. And then I don't hate ETN. And then again, when you factor in, like if Jonathan Brooks can be anything, that's a former 2nd round draft pick. Like they've got depth for the next few years. And I think it's just one of those things where they could rotate all 3 of those backs that they have now and be a really good team this year. I really like what the Panthers have done, getting Tet McMillan. I think it's kind of funny. Like Tepper said, like, Bryce Young doesn't need weapons because he's a point guard. And then like they just like Leggett, Tet, you know what I mean? Like they totally just backed up down from that stance, which is probably right.
Yeah, Bryce Young I was a year too early on Bryce Young. I was drafting him a lot last year, and it really hurt my portfolios that he got benched for a little bit for Andy Dalton. But I'm a big believer in the year 3 renaissance for Bryce Young. I'm also a big believer in the Miami Dolphins running back room as a whole, but the individual pieces, I have skepticism about how it's going to work out. They're my number 2 running back room. Johnny, you have them at 11. So
Wow,
we're
number
both like,
2.
yeah, so we're both very, high on them, but I'm a lot higher. And I think it has to do with a couple things. Achane is obviously, getting drafted top 5, top 7 in almost every format for overall in running back rooms. I think his upside is absolutely massive. But when you look at the other pieces that are behind him, you have Jalen Wright, who could be a thing. You have Ollie Gordon, who could be a thing. And Alexander Madison, almost the quiet, lurking veteran who can hit between the tackles and like he's a pros pro. He's a pros pro running back, not super flashy. But when you have all those guys together, that's what I want to see in a running back room. I want to see massive ceilings. I also want to see a high floor. And I think Miami has that high floor there. And it's going to get a little bit higher if Jonnu Smith gets traded, Johnny. There's some rumblings now that Jonnu Smith is getting some trade rumors from the Pittsburgh Steelers and Arthur Smith. And the Steelers are looking for a weapon, blah, blah, blah. And didn't they just trade a weapon? Did they just trade away George Pickens and they want to be on the look for another weapon? Like, come on. Anyway, sorry.
No, it just shows you how done they were with George Pickens, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. With the Dolphins, like the funny part I put in there on the depth chart was I was like, you got the guy, Devon Achane, you got the backups, Jalen Wright, Ollie Gordon, and then you got the guy who will somehow lead the team in rushing yards and touchdowns with Alexander Madison and a throw-up face, right? Like that's my one concern with Devon Achane is kind of that, like him being built to handle the 20 touches, like we talked about a few times in this show. And I just could see like that offensive line, man, that would be my one push back on you from a fantasy projection standpoint is like, it looked pretty terrible last year, especially in the run. I mean, passing and run game, but almost especially like you felt like there were opportunities where if he would have just had a little more time to do something with the football and make a move that he could have done something, but there were 2 defenders closing in on him as he's getting the ball, right, with Devon Achane. So I think I am curious to hear, like, yeah, we all expect Devon Achane to be the guy. I imagine that's where, like, you really want to anchor that number 2 ranking, but like after him, how does it shake out? Is it where does Ollie Gordon fit in? Do you think is that entice you at all?
Well, Ollie Gordon is Chuba Hubbard 2.0. It's going to take another year for Ollie Gordon to be like any sort of fantasy relevant. It's going to take one more year. As we remember, Chuba Hubbard did almost nothing his rookie year, and then he started to build up year 2 and then really broke out in year 3. So it's going to take some time. It's the same, literally like Oklahoma State. And he regresses his final year, and then he gets drafted in the 3rd round, and then he goes to a team that has, a running back in front of him where he's not really able to get much going. And he's Chuba Hubbard 2.0, but that's why I think at least he has some juice. He has some production behind him. But I'm really interested in what is Jalen Wright going to bring to this team. And Wyatt on Man vs. Machine yesterday was not a big fan of Jalen Wright. So, not getting day 2 draft capital, I think, hurt. The profile had its flaws. So we'll see whether Miami can uphold that ranking. They were number 3 in overall running back points and number 5 in max running back points. So Devon Achane is my number 5 running back in projections.
That makes sense. Like from last year to that they were so productive, but I think that also boils down to like the downfield passing attack just got destroyed, right? And that's why Jonnu Smith did so well, right? They needed to get the ball out quick. They needed to do schemed up touches. I think the one thing I heard that I thought was really interesting, somebody pointed out, like buying Jonnu Smith because he had a career high year after like they were running the worst version of their offense possible is probably a fool's errand, right? And
Yes.
I'd almost point to that with the running back room as well, in terms of like a lot of that production came off of like, screen passes and designed short passes. In an
But the
ideal world,
offensive line is so bad, you have to get the ball out fast.
right? And if that can, that's my point. If that continues to be the case, then the offense isn't that good. And if the offense is good, it's because they're able to get the ball in the hands of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle downfield, right? So there's a bit of a rock and a hard place that I think they're stuck between. So I am hammering Chan this year. I've kind of been skeptic on him in years past, and I've learned my lesson. So I will say that, like, the dude is incredibly electric, and there's probably nobody I'd rather have with the ball in their hands and space.
Love it. You also love the LA Rams. You have them at 6. I have them at 17.
Oh, wow.
And I know. Now we're getting spicy, Johnny. We're finally getting into the double digits of differential. For those who are following along, we've started progressively agreeing, and now as we go along the show, we are an hour in and disagreeing significantly. In the LA Rams, get out the boxing gloves. Johnny's throwing it down. The long story short is that Blake Corum is fine, but Jarquez Hunter is also going to be fine. And so I think they're going to cannibalize each other. I have Kyren as my running back 8 overall, but how much more production is there going to be opportunity behind Kyren? Last year and the year before, Kyren Williams leads the NFL in rush share in their backfield. Like, he's a 70+% type of guy. So there's not really room or space for those other guys to get anything going, which is why, like, as a team, they're 26, but Kyren is 8. So really that 17 is like the splitsy difference between those two. And I can see someone as a believer in Blake Corum, a believer in Jarquez Hunter, and Kyren Williams, like, all three of those may justify your ranking. Johnny, is that how you'd approach it?
Yeah. And I think to your point, like, here's the thing. You mentioned like Kyren is 8, and then the others is like the backups is kind of 26. I like that line of thinking, but I think of it more as just like, they're so interchangeable. They're all similar size. Jarquez brings a little more explosiveness to his game, so I'm eager to see him get an opportunity there. But the net of it is, I think that if Kyren goes down, Corum has to step up, or it's Jarquez, like, they would finish in that top 8-10 teams as a unit, almost interchangeably with one another. Like, Kyren has been remarkable the past few years, but I think everybody's been like, man, this guy's nothing special. Like, the athleticism's not there. He fumbles, still is just cranking out fantasy points. And I'm like, well, if he's the guy and there's 2 guys behind him with better pedigree and better athleticism, like, this is a deep running back room, right? And so
Right.
that's kind of what I highlighted in the ranking is, as a trio, I think they're as good as any 3 running backs in totality as any group in the NFL.
Love it. But a running back room I don't love is the New England Patriots. Look, Travion Henderson, I like his talent, no doubt about that. But I don't think Ramondre goes away right away. And that could be annoying for fantasy managers who are expecting Travion to just, like, be the guy right away. He's got all the traits. He produced at Ohio State. He's a dude. Like, we love his talent. But Ramondre is also a player that was extended just last offseason, like a year ago. I have him at 28. This is more of an organizational condemnation than an individual running back room. I'm not convinced that the Patriots did enough for their offense to take the next step. I'm not convinced that Drake May is an elevator. I am not convinced that the wide receiver room question has been answered. Kyle Williams, major questions. Stephon Diggs, it was just 4 days ago that, oh yeah, Stephon Diggs is going to be ready for week 1. Yesterday, Stephon Diggs is going to be ready for week 4. At this rate, he's not going to be ready until 2029 by the time the season starts. So, like, You never know with the pink stuff that he's on the boat with all these ladies, like, look, the reality is that the answers have not yet been found for the Patriots pass catching core. I love Hunter Henry as like the piece, but I can't get behind the organization of the Patriots supporting Travion Henderson getting into even like mid RB2.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say when I'm starting to do the wide receiver exercise next, ranking all 32 wide receiver groups, one thing I'm pretty set on is the Patriots at 32, because it's just, you don't know what you're getting with Diggs returning from injury. You don't know what you're getting with Kyle Williams,
Jalen Polk is a bust. Javon Baker's a bust. Like,
boy, I mean, I don't want to write him off after 1 year, but it seems like the Patriots are ready to, and like the tape was brutal.
Give me Kayshon Boutte over those guys.
Dude, that's actually, I've only done the write-up for the first few teams, but that's what my analysis was. I mean, this isn't rocket. It's nothing I'm telling people they don't already know. Kayshon Boutte was the most productive perimeter receiver they had last year. So that is what it is. And it just shows you that those guys aren't anything special if they couldn't push him for snaps as the season went on. And so that being, I agree. Offense could be kind of rough. I like Drake May personally. I love Travion. I think Travion is like a special kind of player. And it could be one of those things where you're looking back in a few years and you're like, yeah, the writing was kind of on the wall that guy was very Jahmyr Gibbs-esque, right? And so I think it's one of these things where, yeah, it's a bit rough. Like I thought that contract to Ramondre was like, it hurt my soul when I saw it. Because I'm like, you guys aren't ready to play and compete. Why are you giving a running back all this money? Usually like the running back should be the cherry on top when you've got like a good team. And bottom line, I think he'll either fumble the job away or Travion will break up a couple long runs and kind of seize that role before the end of the year. I do think it happens at a certain point because Vrabel's a no nonsense kind of guy. Like Stevenson is the same guy who was involved in that pitch play where he threw it to Jacoby Myers, who threw it to Chandler Jones, right? And they lost the game. That play will never get out of my head in terms of bonehead stuff. And so I say all that just because I'm I do think Travion has enough talent in my eyes to put them around where I put them. Now, that being said, there's certainly a lot of uncertainty with that offense.
Uncertainty. But what I'm not uncertain of is the Las Vegas Raiders. They're 7 in my rankings. You have them at 19, Johnny. At what do you hate Ashton Genty? You hate Raheem Mostert? I mean, come on. These are the Raiders. The Raiders. Look, I have them at 15 in my overall running back points. So I think that's maybe more in alignment where you have them. But I have Genty as my running back 4 in projections. And so that averages out to be a sum rank of 19, and that gets him the ranking of 7. So I think it's more so the top heaviness justification.
Yeah.
But also Raheem Mostert is quietly one of the biggest handcuff winners and such a great value. Who else is in this running back room, Johnny?
Zamir White, Sincere McCormick. Oh. Dude, I read something. Somebody was saying that Mostert could be a gunner, that he could be a special teams guy. And I was like, I don't view it that way at all. But I also think that's why I gave him the ranking I did. It was man, Genty is awesome, but after him, it's not great. Mostert, I like him, but his ability to stay healthy has just never been there throughout his entire career. And I think he's past that age apex too, right? So I almost don't say it jokingly where I'm dude, Sincere McCormick could maybe win the hearts and minds of some guys and be closer to the backup than Mostert by the time the season comes around. And in that scenario, you're just gross when you look past Genty to any of those other running back options. You're this is gross. So it was
Right.
hard for me to get so bullish on that unit as a whole when it's so depleted behind Genty, and we haven't seen Genty in the NFL.
Yeah. Sincere McCormick could be a very interesting late round guy. The LA Chargers, it's almost flip-flopped. It actually is. You see the Raiders at 19. I have the Raiders at 7. You have the Chargers at 7. I have the Chargers at 19. So we are 12 spots flip-flopped for both teams. My bearish case is just that I love Amari and Hampton. I love Najee Harris, but I am not convinced that they're going to get the play volume to help justify it, Johnny. That's how they're 29th or they're 16th in total points, 24th from their maximum running back scorer. So it's going to be, I think, a pretty even split. Both guys are very good. Clearly, Amari and Hampton gets the first round draft capital, but the Chargers, I don't know, just middle of the pack, given the lack of clarity of who's going to be doing what in this Chargers offense.
Dude, that kind of surprises me. Like from a projection standpoint, they're going to pound the rock with Greg Roman and Harbaugh. Like I got to imagine there's fantasy production there. Like how it breaks down is maybe a little questionable. At the end of the day, the ranking goes into like the idea that they've got that one spot locked down long term, right? They've got a guy like Amarion Hampton who brings everything that I look for in a bell cow: size, tremendous collegiate production, draft capital, just checks every box you could look for. And then again, they do have a little bit better of a backup scenario than the Raiders, right? Like I am not a fan of Najee Harris by any stretch. Like any running back who averages less than 4 yards per carry on their career is like, that's ugly to me, right? But at the same time, he's what the word you used a couple of times. He's a pro's pro, right? Like this is a guy who doesn't fumble. He is reliable, and I think they're going to move the football and they're going to have a solid operation. And then, me, man. I feel like my bit tonight has been just throwing in a little saucy players who you don't want to talk about, but I got to talk about, like Raheem the Rocket Sanders, bro. Like undrafted free agent, spent some time at Arkansas before going to South Carolina. Like this is a guy where a few years ago in Devy drafts, you were looking at Ollie Gordon and Raheem Sanders as like the next thing since sliced bread, right? And I think Rocket Sanders is a guy who could earn a roster spot, push Kamani Vidal for that RB3 role. And that's a good problem to have, is to have some guys who are all capable players. And so I like that team. There's a whole group of people cheering for Kamani Vidal to be, the next Alfred Morris.
Vidal.
Yeah, people were telling me Kamani Vidal was going to be the next Alfred Morris. And it's a funny comp in hindsight, but it's a good running back room overall to me.
Yeah, that's where I'm drawing the line there. Kamani Vidal, yikes. I mean, he had one big play last year.
The one time they used
the one big play. It's such a great one big play. He couldn't beat out now unsigned J.K. Dobbins for some snaps. My goodness.
Was actually like legit good though. That's the thing that's like crazy. It's like, yeah, he was good, but if they think they're fine without him, then they must feel good. They must feel like they're in a better spot this year than last year, and they were good last year at rushing the football.
They were, and there was, I think, a surprising amount of passes that went to J.K. Dobbins compared to his time in Baltimore. I'm still not in on the Chargers. Sorry to say. I'll fight you. It's okay. That's why people are here. They're sticking around 70 plus minutes into this. The Cardinals are one that I'm very low on, Johnny. And I know you've got him at 15. I've got him at 27. And I have James Conner as RB20, but this room at 29 overall, I have no faith in Trey Benson I just don't. I don't have faith. The film looks bad for Trey Benson. He has no vision. He's got great speed, and then there's no one else behind Benson. So this is James Conner's like a top 20 guy, and then there's nothing else. Sorry, I'm writing off Benson. It's done.
No, I'm not. I'm honestly not going to argue with you on that. The thing I like about Benson is that he does have size and speed. I think to your point, like running back's not a very developmental position. You either got that vision or you don't, right? But the fact that they spent some draft capital to bring in a guy like him, who I think could be a really intriguing handcuff if Connor went down. Like even in efficiency, I think he'd be the guy. They really seem to like kind of toting out one guy and giving him the majority of the work. And I'll go as far as to say it's like, as long as Connor is healthy, which is again like it's a fact. It's not if but when. So like when he's healthy, he is a top 15 back to me in fantasy football pretty easily. And then it gets dicey after Benson and you've got Amari DiMercato, Michael Carter, DJ Dallas, right? Like kind of, I think my depth chart, I said LOL cute for all three of those guys, right? Like it's cute. But it's a middle of the pack running back room to me.
Yeah. Imari
like, no, it's terrible.
Imari DiMercato. They're 27. Come on now. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I have at 11. Johnny, you have them at 24. I think this is, for all the penalties that I've had on teams for organizational issues, I think the organizational confidence we can have in the Pittsburgh Steelers. They know how to run the ball. They know how to run an offense. Doesn't matter that they haven't answered the quarterback question yet. It's either going to be Aaron Rodgers or it's going to be Kirk Cousins. Either way, the running back is going to get fantasy points in this room. And, I have them at 2 overall in the running back, like as a whole fantasy points, but the top running back in the room is at 22. So really it's
is
like
that Caleb Johnson.
Yeah. Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
Caleb Johnson is at 22 for me. So it's really just a balance of, this is a really strong running back room because you got Jalen Warren there as well, but the floor is very high. The ceiling is not there though.
I push him down a little bit because again, it's like, I agree from a fantasy output, they are going to run the football a lot in Pittsburgh. There will be fantasy points for the running back position. From a skill perspective, like I'm not blown away by Jalen Warren. I do think Caleb Johnson can be a star, but that third round draft capital kind of makes me think maybe there's something that the NFL is, wasn't as high on, right? Multiple teams passed on him 3 times, right? For other players they thought were going to add more value to their team. So it's hard for me to just pencil him in as like, okay, they've got a rock solid, early down back. They've got in a rock solid backup in Warren. I think Warren's he's a good real life football player, but
he's what we wanted Jaleel McLaughlin to be.
Yeah. Like he adds value to a team for sure. But it just is one of these situations where I don't know if they have a true star yet. And once you get into like the 20s for me, most of those guys have at least someone like an Aaron Jones where you're like, all right, like this is a guy who's got some sauce to him,
Yeah. Johnny, you're going to hate this ranking. You're going to hate it. You hate it already. You ranked the Baltimore Ravens 9. I have them at 22.
Wow, what did I say? I was like, you're going to have him number 2 with Justice Hill.
22 for the Baltimore Ravens. And that's because their room overall is 27 in fantasy points. And max running back, I have Derrick Henry at 15 this year.
Ooh, why is that? Like age cliff or like what?
Touchdown regression, age apex issues. And this is also hashtag vibes because you can do that in projections. Here's the reason why. I was very in on Derrick Henry last year. I was oversaturated with Derrick Henry market. And so I was following how he got his fantasy points like throughout the game. And there were time and time again where he had started the game through the first 3 quarters where he was rushing 14 for like 50. And like, I was happy with the volume that he got in 14 rushes through the first 3 quarters, but the efficiency was not there.
Yep.
But then in the fourth quarter, like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he would have like 2 gashing runs of 30 yards each. And it would save his stat line. He would get one more touchdown, or the Ravens would just salt the game away. And look, the Ravens could do that again, but it's not something that I want to be confident in saying, yeah, Derrick Henry's again going to be a 20 touchdown guy, an almost 2,000 total yard type of guy. The pathway for him to fail is actually like a lot wider given these factors than him replicating yet again another massive season. So that's just my positional take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I would also say, like, you just described Derrick Henry's career, right? Like, it wasn't an outlier last year that he wears teams down through the first 3 quarters and then is way more efficient. Like, I'm looking right now, game halves in the first half last year averaged 5.1 yards a carry, to your point. In the second half, averaged 6.4 yards per carry. Right. So he's just a different running back in those second halves, right? Yeah. Attempts 1 through 10, 5.7 yards per carry. Attempts 11 through 20, 6.6 yards per carry, right? So once he starts this has always been a guy who needed volume to get a rhythm and to start to wear those teams down where they don't want to tackle him. And it's one of those, it's almost like a fable. People don't want to believe. They're like, oh, they don't want to tackle that guy after 3 quarters. Like, I truly believe it with Derrick Henry. You know, at a certain point, you're just like, you know what? Like, I'm making a business decision here. And this is just a guy who, that was what the big problem with his career getting off the ground was with the Titans early on. They were trying to rotate him with DeMarco Murray and use him sparingly. Like, give him all the work, let him find a rhythm, and he will produce. And he hasn't let people down ever since they've kept that mentality. And so, I actually love that you called that out, because it's one of the more fun things about Derrick Henry, especially as an owner. You're like, man, you're sweating it, and then he busts off a 50-yard run in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, heck yeah!
I knew it was gonna happen. I told you, you know what I mean, because he's good for it. Like, so, but it gets. I think I would have put them even higher, and I got flack for putting them as low as I did, because it's such a good running offense.
Right.
But again, a guy like Derrick Henry goes down, it gets real dicey, because Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell just do not bring the same element to that offense. Obviously, no one could, but it's just like they would have to completely scrap their playbook almost and just run something totally different, which would be kind of wild.
Yeah, they don't have anybody of pedigree behind Derrick Henry. That's it. So not only dinged for the age cliff, but also for the depth chart. Johnny, you have the Giants at 28. I have them at 14. This is more so just belief in Skattebo actually being like okay, and Tyrone Tracy being okay. They're at 6 for total points. There's not a rushing threat. I don't think Jackson Dart gets much usage this year. So with Russell Wilson mostly being a pocket passing quarterback, the whole running back room is at 6, but the max running back, like the highest scoring running back, is at 23. I have Skattebo at 23. And Tyrone Tracy, like maybe at a little bit lower than that. So they're close. But the beat reporters are already coming out and say Skattebo is going to be the lead back by October. And you love to hear that as somebody who has drafted a lot of Skattebo. So allow this bias to go forth. Look, you might love Tracy. You might hate Tracy. You might hate Skattebo, whatever the case may be. But 28 is very, very low.
I like them both, just to be clear. Like, I think they're both good players. I have a ton of Tyrone Tracy, because I was the guy telling everybody, go get this guy for free last year. Like, I was getting him in the last pick of drafts. So I have him in most of my dynasty rosters. And it was kind of disheartening to see them bring in Skattebo, right, as a Tracy owner. But then I was like, man, this is, as a guy who likes Skattebo, this is a great landing spot where he could definitely push a guy like Tracy. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a 5th round wide receiver convert in Tracy with fumbling issues, and a 4th rounder who wouldn't run a 40-yard dash at the combine. And like, when you don't run a 40-yard dash as a running back when you know you're going in like the 1st round. Like that's when you can do that. When you don't do it, it's because you've got some reservations about your 40 time. So bottom line, in the tweets I put together, I said, hey, this is what it is. But those 2 guys, a 5th round wide receiver convert with ball security issues and a 4th round running back who wouldn't run the 40 competing for your starter spot, is about as unserious as it gets. And I fully stand by that.
Ouch. Oof, oof. Cam Skattebo, we'll see you outside. The Buffalo Bills come in for me at 31.
Wow, nice, bro.
Yeah, let's go, baby. You have them at 16, so you're not optimistic. You're just like, fine, whatever. But I think for me, it's the heightened. I essentially take all of your arguments and just turn the dial. Like, I'm not a believer in James Cook. He's going to be a massive regression candidate. You're already hearing about the offseason rumblings, and they feel different than other running back negotiation tactics. This feels different because he's asking for more money than what the market, it's even close to what the market would give for a player like this. Yeah. And so that's just hashtag bad vibes. But behind James Cook, there's Ray Davis. And then who? Like, we know it's Ty Johnson, but who? And I think the better question is who's behind James Cook. Like, Ray Davis is just a guy. There's nothing special about any of these running backs. Like, I don't view James Cook as a special running back. So for this team that already doesn't have special running backs, and then Josh Allen steals a ton of goal line work and a ton of rushing share, yeah, they get at 31 for me.
I said nice from the beginning because, like, I don't hate it whatsoever. It's one of those things where, like, you have to be bold to say, hey, a guy like James Cook, who thinks he should be paid the most in the NFL at running back, is actually the head of the 31st best running back committee in the NFL, right? Like, that's a bold take, and I'm kind of here for it because, yeah, the dude is straight up asking for way more money than he's worth, right? But the truth of the matter is, you're right, these negotiations do sound different. I kind of like him as a target in fantasy because it's like, I just feel this almost like FU vibe where they're just going to run him into the dirt for like 300 plus touches and then just let him walk, and make like $5 million because he's going to blow out his knee at the end of the year. Something like that. That's cool with me. Again, like I'm actually warmed up to James Cook a little more because in the years past, I'm like, I don't think he's really the type of guy, a bell cow kind of guy. They were using him near the goal line, right? Like he got a lot of rushing touchdowns, and it was because he had the goal line role for the most part, which was like kind of head scratcher because you're like, all right, Ray Davis is a pile mover. Like that's what he kind of did in college. I don't hate Ray Davis. I put kind of nice next to Ty Johnson. That's how I classified his roster spot. Like Ty Johnson's kind of nice. So I think as a group, again, that's middle of the pack. 16, dead middle.
There we go. The New Orleans Saints for me come in at 4. You have them at 21. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on with these projections. I don't know, Johnny. I don't know.
You said that out loud and you were like, yeah, that's wild.
Look. It's just the numbers talking to me. I got to talk to the spreadsheets here. But with whatever quarterback they're going to roll out, it's going to be heavily leaned upon this running game. I don't know if they're going to be able to get the ball to the wide receivers. I don't know if they're going to be able to get the ball to Shaheed or to Chris Olave. It's going to be leaned on very heavily, this running back room. So you have Alvin Kamara, who's been a producer. He's my running back 9 in projected fantasy points, which I think is fair, given, he's been a top 10 running back pretty much his entire career.
Yep.
And there's no reason to move off of him. And he did that last year as a 51% rush share guy. Like, who's going to get the other 49% of the rushes this year? It's going to be Devin Neal, Kendre Miller. I mean, we don't know, but someone's going to get some production. Someone's going to get some work. There's no Taysom Hill going to be this year. We're expecting Hill to miss a significant amount of this of the regular season, given the ACL tear. So look, I think the Saints are in a sneaky position with Kellen Moore now as their head coach. I think Moore is more savvy than what they've been dealing with in previous years in the Saints organization. So I have a little bit more organizational confidence from the coaching staff, even though there are eyebrow raises about what this quarterback room will look like.
Yeah, I mean, first off, Alvin Kamara is one of my favorite players, and that's how I like I said, my whole world. Like, he's not just their starter, that's like my whole world right there. So I really like the guy. I think there's every year, the past few years, it seems like there's been just an incredible value on him. He's going to like RB, 15 through 20 range. I think somewhere around like RB 18, something like that in best ball. And it's just like, it's the same guy who's
Kamara's 20 on underdog.
Yeah, consistently been a top 10 guy. And for some reason, we just feel the need to put him in the 20s. And it was similar last year, and he outproduced it. So he's a target for me in redraft for sure. Even a cheap buy in dynasty, honestly. But like, Kendre Miller could be fun if he could stay healthy. He could be fun. And Devin Neal was one of my favorite draft. Like the 6th round draft capital actually hurt me for a few days. I was walking around with the blues after the draft, and it was mainly because of Devin Neal and DJ Giddens getting, like, I thought those were round 3, 4 guys.
But they got the great landing spot, Johnny.
Yeah,
they got
solid landing spot. I don't know how you get all the way up to 4 there, like, just still at the end of the day. And like, there's frustrating guys like CEH that they re-signed, who's like, he could be on the field. Like, you talk about that 51% of the rushes that is going elsewhere. Like,
I give CEH 2%.
It's probably some gross is my point, like some gross division of like that 50 divided by 3,
Sure.
And so with Kamara being the guy.
Yeah. I have Devin Neal as the RB2 on this team. That's how I have the projections going.
Dude, talk sweet to me. Like, I need it because I've been flipped from like he was someone I was all over in before the draft, and now at this point, like, I'll hardly touch him because draft capital is so indicative of fantasy production and usage. And it's just like, at cost, you're seeing guys like Jarquez Hunter, who were drafted in the 4th round. And yeah, like, Kyron's the guy, but just at a certain point, you have to start looking at it like, man, the Rams are a better offense. He's got better draft capital. He'd be maybe one injury away. Like, and you start teetering towards those type of guys who are 4th rounders instead of, a 6th rounder like Devin Neal.
Well, Johnny, this is a ranking that I think I'm going to actually have to fight you on. Like, we are an hour and a half into this pod. I did not think it was going to be a 90-minute one. Look, this is a great one. I'm actually going to fight you about the New York Jets. I'm actually going to fight you. You have them at 23. You're 17 spots off. I have them at 6, Johnny. I have them at 6. Total points for the Jets, running back room as a whole, is 9. I have Breece Hall at 7. Braylon Allen is good at football. Yeah, Isaiah Davis is good at football. And you know who's great at football is Breece freaking Hall. So yes, I have him as a top 6 room. Justin Fields, I get it. The argument is maybe he'll take away some of the rusher. He will. I don't care. That's still factored in. They're a top 6 running back room. Johnny, I'm going to fight you. Let's go.
No, man, I honestly, like,
23 is disrespect.
The perspective is certainly valid. I do think they've got depth. The knock
Johnny's
I
trying
have
to compliment me to soften the blows.
No, the knock I have is on Breece Hall. It's not on your ranking, brother. Like, it's just a little bit that I think he is like one of the less reliable kind of, like, I think there's just this big perception in people's heads that he is like this guy and this top end, high end guy. And to your point, like what my eyes showed me was that Braylon Allen should have been getting more touches last year and been getting more involved. And at a certain point, like when you're looking at backups, looking like they have more juice than the starter, like that starts to worry me a bit. And so that's where that kind of ranking comes in, is like, I just think that, yeah, they're all three good, but I think that they're all actually closer in talent than maybe people understand. Like, I think Breece Hall's not as good as people think he is, which is bold. And again, people love Breece. So yeah, there it is.
Get out
there
of
it
here.
is.
Oh, boo. I will fight you through the screen. All right. We got two left. These are the two biggest ones we see most differently. The Cincinnati Bengals, I have at 8. Johnny, you have them at 26.
Yeah.
Total points, I have the Bengals at 7. But the max running back, so Chase Brown is my RB13. And I think that that's a fair projection because his ranking, his ADP right now is RB11. So I'm actually a little bit lower than the ADP on Chase Brown. I'll draft some Chase Brown. I like the Bengals offense. Again, this is more of an organizational trust that no matter what, the Bengals offense is not going to fail, barring a Joe Burrow injury.
Yeah. I think my big gripe here with them is like specifically just kind of that Chase Brown is not a guy who should be an every down back. Like, he is a good player, but he's better. He just screams like, use me like Jahmyr Gibbs. Don't use me like David Montgomery. Right. And the thing is, like, he's kind of playing both of those roles. And until someone like a Taj Brooks emerges, or a Zach Moss somehow returns to full health and
Samaje Perine.
No, because Samaj is not going to be that between the tackles guy, and neither should Chase Brown. Like,
no.
Exactly. Samaje can be a decent like pass catching backup behind Chase Brown. I would use Chase Brown as like my kind of in space or like change of pace and pass catching down back. But the data point that I had on them that was the most interesting was Chase Brown in 2024 when receiving 10 or more carries, 3.38 yards per attempt. So when he got 10 or more carries in a game, 3.38 yards per attempt. In 2024, when receiving less than 10 carries, 6.42 yards per attempt. So again, it just kind of goes back to that belief that I have that good running back in a role. He fits a role. He's not an every down between the tackles, 3 down back. And I think they don't have that. And so I had to push them down my rankings. And I also I can't even say out loud, like, I like Taj Brooks. Like, I'm not blown away by him being like some, fix to that situation. I think it's a gap that they're going to have this year. So that's why I have them at as far down as I do.
The last one, the people have been waiting all episode.
Yeah, I'm dying because I can't figure this out.
Well, there's only one team left, Johnny, that we haven't talked about.
That's wild, man.
It's the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks, I have at 25. You have them at 5.
Wow.
20 spot differential. I have the overall team points at 18, but the max running back is at 27. That's Kenneth Walker is at 27, which I admittedly feels low. Like, I'm a big Kenneth Walker guy from a talent perspective. But last year we saw Zach Charbonnet, even when Kenneth Walker was healthy, like just eat a little bit in, eat a little bit in. And like both players, both Charbonnet and Walker last year had at least an 8% target share, which is wild that you have, your lead back and your breather back get that type of target. So I think the top heaviness is the bigger penalty here, that we don't know what this offense is going to look like. I don't have trust in the organization of the Seahawks. I mean, they just traded away DK Metcalf. This offense could be very bad. Sam Darnold, do we have confidence? No. Cooper Kupp could be washed. There's a lot of organizational issues, and then the lack of top heaviness is why I'm dinking the Seattle Seahawks, who overall, as like an RB room points projected wise, are middle of the pack.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think, again, this goes back to like the big discrepancy with the Seahawks is that the running back room talent to me is top 5, right? Like I'll give you a little jab. I think Kenneth Walker is who you want Breece Hall to be. So that's my first little dig there. And then, so I think when you start to look at that, you see how there's a kind of a perception shift between the two of us. And then, like, I firmly believe that all 4 of their running backs, Sharbs, Kenneth Walker, Damian Martinez, and Kenny McIntosh, all 4 of those guys could be better.
Where's George Halani? Where's George Halani?
Yeah, he didn't make the cut on my list, unfortunately. But Kenny McIntosh averaged 5.5 yards a carry last year on 30 plus carries. Like, so very limited usage, but he looked good when he was out there.
Damian Martinez is a dude. Love
7th round
him.
draft capital was, again, him. Neal
Surprising.
and Giddens really surprised me. Apparently, there was some off the field stuff with Martinez. I haven't been able to like pin it down. Like, he had a DUI, but the charges were dropped. But it's something to do with off the field stuff, because it's not on the field stuff. He was a junior declare. The production was there.
Right.
The tape was awesome. And so I just go back to, again, like I said earlier, the Rams have as deep of a 3 as anybody in the league. Well, the Seahawks have as deep of a 4 as anybody in the league. And, you know, with a guy like Walker who gets dinged up, like, this is just a room that I think Sharp could be an awesome handcuff. And, like, if they both go down, I'd love to see Kenny McIntosh and Damian Martinez get some run, because, again, I probably prefer either of those guys to Javonte Williams.
I love it. Johnny, it's been great chatting it up with you here, discussing the running back rooms. Woo. Follow Johnny on the X Machine at Fantasy Picasso. You can follow me, Bradley Stalder, at FF Stalder on Twitter. Johnny, any other things you want to drop before we peace out for the night?
No, thanks for having me on the show, man. I have my own show. I'm going to get you on as a host, Dynasty Deep Dive. It's also here on the Player Profiler Now YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to our platform. We've got tons of hard-hitting advice for you. I'll also do shorts on our YouTube channel where I bring in some breaking news. So we got you covered with all the fantasy support you could ever need. And don't leave some comments on this video. Ask us questions. Let Bradley and I fight it out in the comments a little more. And thank you everyone for watching.
Let's go. All right. Until next time, I'm a half Johnny. I'm Bradley. Good luck in the best ball streets, everybody.